So I knew it anyway, but once again the GS has shown itself to be an amazing touring bike. So just coming into the settlement of Rowland, A-R-A-U-L-A-N-D. I only mention it because it's very fancy. There's some houses on the top of the hill up there, I don't know if you can see them. They look really fancy and posh. So I guess this is where the well-heeled come. Maybe it's one of their spots to come when you've got plenty of money and you want to come skiing. You have your ski place here. It's a beautiful bit of countryside. It's quite a different feel to the rest that we had earlier on today. It's a much more alpine feeling. In some ways reminds me of Italy, which is no bad thing. So just while I'm thinking about things that have worked well and not so well on this trip, just thinking about the tyres I've got on the bike now, the Metzeler Roadtec 01s. I've been overall very pleased with them. I've done about, I think without working it out in detail, about 6,000 miles on them now. And the rear is starting to show some signs of squaring off, but not terrible, which is pretty good. I think that's longer than I would normally get. I normally get about 5,000 miles out of a rear tyre, and then I'm looking to replace. So they've still got some life in them. They'll certainly get me home yet. I've probably got another 600-700 miles, and then I think I'll see how it goes. I might get a bit more out of them yet. So in terms of longevity, they're the best set of tyres I've had on the GS, which is good. Although on the downside, although it's not much of a downside, the one thing I have noticed about them is there's a little bit of a noise that the front tyre makes. I don't know if you can hear it on the mic. In fact, I'll lift my visor up, and it's this road's not a good place to demonstrate it, but there's a little bit of a whine. Probably can't hear that. It's particularly when I turn, I suspect, when you get onto that bit of tread. Can you hear that? Just a very slight whine. It's not terrible or off-putting or gets in the way or anything like that. It's just a noise I hadn't noticed with other tyres. But yeah, overall very pleased with those. In fact, Bill ahead, who's on the bike ahead of me on the RS, he's also got the Metzlers on, and he says he's got the same whining noise as well. So I think it's to do with the grip pattern on the front tyre. Literally like a roller coaster, look, dead straight, but up and down, fantastic. Completely different landscape again in terms of flora. I mean, look at these trees. I don't know what they are, but we've not seen these before. Completely different look to the place again. What an absolute roller coaster of a road. Hilarious. So fast forward half an hour or so, and we're just approaching the, what I hope is going to be the Heavy Water Museum. Now this is straight out of World War II films, isn't it, this sort of terrain? Is it the Guns of Navarone? Probably not actually, but I'm sure I've seen a film where Kirk Douglas or someone was at a place just like this. Now it looks like that's it down there, I imagine, on my left. Stand up, you might see it. Look, amazing hydro pipes going down into the complex there. But at one time, I understand, that was the largest hydro power station in the world, or in fact it might even been the largest power station in the world. I'll hopefully get some more facts when I'm in there. Yeah, hopefully it's going to be quite interesting. Not sure I'm going to be taking the camera in and doing bits of the camera though, because I feel a bit of a nana walking around doing that, but we'll see how it goes. Looks like the parking's down here. And then a bit of a walk over that bridge by the looks of it. And up. So that was quite interesting. That's the turns out that it was the biggest, largest power station in the world, not just here. Built in 1908, obviously as a hydro station. And what happened was there's such an amount of power that it produced, they had an excess, so they used it to make fertiliser. And then a side product of fertiliser production turned out was this stuff called heavy water, or D2O, which has deuterium atoms instead of hydrogen atoms. And, if you're still following me, turns out you need D2O, heavy water, when you're making a neutron bomb, because a neutron can be slowed down when it's passed through deuterium, I believe. And the whole chain reaction to make a an atomic bomb depends on some precise timing. So if you don't have heavy water that acts as kind of a braking mechanism, if you like, in nuclear fission, then you end up, you can't make a nuclear bomb. So it was commercial activity here before the war, and actually making the fertilizer and the heavy water, although of course nuclear bomb wasn't in the frame at that point. The Germans saw the opportunity there and then started to ramp up production of it as part of their efforts to get a atomic bomb. So quite interesting. A lot of the we only had a very short time in there, so I didn't get to see all of the exhibits, and a lot of it was just in Norwegian. But the film I was talking about, the war film, I knew I'd seen this valley somewhere in my past in black and white, was called Heroes of the Telemark, and it was all about one of the sabotage attempts at that heavy water factory. There are a number of attacks on it. In fact, 4 were detailed in the museum there, including attacks via soldiers from the UK who were coming in with Horsa gliders. Unfortunately crashed on the way. I think 48 people were killed on that attempt. Then there was an overland attempt with a bomb planted. Then there were actual bombing raids, and there were also local resistance attempts at disrupting production. But yeah, very interesting and worth a visit if you're coming through the area. Alrighty, final stretch of the day then. We're off now to Kongsberg and the Gilded Hotel. I'll catch up with you once I get settled in the room. Whew. So, welcome to Kongsberg, everybody, and the Hotel Gilded, which is, has to be said, a little bit more budget, shall we say, than the previous hotels. But we're only here for one night. It's quite late. It's gone 7 already. We got it, long old down the bike, and I'm gagging for a beer, so I won't linger. But anyway, what we did today, just to quickly show you, was from Bergen all the way down here to Kongsberg. Tomorrow, all we've got to do is go from Kongsberg to Oslo, and then we're going to be catching the ferry, and that's the fancy ferry that we got before, back down to Germany and Kiel. So won't be too much recording tomorrow, pretty much radio silent, and again there's no point showing you the boat and stuff again, but then when we get to Germany it'll be a slightly different route, so certainly we'll be back on then. Anyway, I'm gagging for a beer. It's been an amazing day. It's been a long day on the bike, 300 plus miles, museums, waterfalls, unbelievable scenery. Really enjoyed it, but I'm absolutely cream crackered, so I'm heading down the bar for a beer with the chaps. Alright, look forward to speaking to you, if not tomorrow, when we're back to Germany. Okay, cheers for now. So wind forward 36 hours or so, and we've left Kongsberg, we've gone through Oslo, we've caught the fancy ship, the ferry, crossed back down to Kiel, and we've just left the ferry, and we're now in back in Germany again, and we're heading down towards our night stop tonight, which is going to be in the Wildenhausen Nature Park, which sounds very nice. Apparently it's quite a nice hotel. However, a bit of a bonus for me, and I don't want this to sound wrong, but we're actually going en route via Belsen, the site of the infamous concentration camp, somewhere I've read a lot about and I've always wanted to go, so for all the right reasons. So in an odd sort of way, I'm really looking forward to checking that out. There's not much there. It's not a tourist type place like Auschwitz has become, but I think it'll just be interesting to sample the atmosphere there. It's also where Anne Frank and her mother were, unfortunately, well, where they died and where they're buried. So there's a few memorials around, but not much more than that. But that's the next stop, basically, Belsen. So it looks like the group is going to be slightly split up again today. We're sort of doing our own thing to a degree. We know where we're going to meet up, at Belsen, and then later at the hotel. And the ride down promises to be quite nice, I think, once we're out of the way of all this traffic. Apparently we go through some quite nice German towns and villages, so looking forward to seeing those. Well, I think as far as spectacular scenery is concerned, we've probably maxed out on that Norwegian sector, which was absolutely incredible. Having said that, I don't know this part of Germany at all. This is Saxony, I think. So we'll see what it's got for us. We do have white vans. Vankendorf. Sounds like my type of town. Anyway, we're heading down this route, which is slightly different to the one that we took when we came up to the ferry at Kiel, just for variation's sake. I think this is the A1 that we're on, or we're heading towards the A1. And we're going to skirt around the edge of Hamburg. But if it stays like this, it'll be quite a nice run. This unfortunately isn't an autobahn at this point. There are speed limits on here, so we can't go hacking down. But according to the sat-nav, it's about an hour and 5 minutes till we get to Belsen, Bergen-Belsen. Belsen, Bergen? Whichever way. Cheerio! Lady on a GS. Nice. Oh, it does the heart good to see that in such an organised country as Germany, they have these contraflows as well, with seemingly no one doing any work. It's not just blighty. Excellent. Okay, so we've come to an unrestricted part of the motorway now then, or the autobahn. So there are no speed limits at this point, so you can go as fast as you feel you need to do so, which is rather fun. I've got quite a bit of weight on the back of the bike, and I'm doing just over 100 at the moment. It feels a little bit light at the front end, so I don't want to go too mad. Having said that, perhaps it's worked through it. Oh, hang on, we'll come back to a speed limited area again, back down to 120k. I have to say, it's very civilised being able to just go at the speed you feel appropriate to get past traffic and so on. And on this particular stretch, where it's not super duper busy, it seems quite safe as well. Obviously you need to be looking in your mirrors to make sure there's not some car or something hacking up behind you at super high speed, but generally speaking it seems to work very well. It'd be fascinating to compare the accident statistics on German autobahns versus UK motorways and see whether our speed limited versions are actually safer or not. Boy, it's another really hot day. Look, 30 degrees already. It's not even 11 o'clock in the morning yet. Some sort of accident situation, or maybe a load spill, something like that, don't know. Anyway, it's all under control by the looks of it. The scenery in this part of Germany looks very familiar, actually, very much like Blighty. In fact, if we weren't driving on the wrong side of the road here, I think I was in Blighty. The road surface is very similar, signage is very similar, trees, etc. all much the same. Shame, really. Okay, in fact that was the B404 I think that we were on before. We're now turning off onto the A1 that just skirts just round the eastern side of Hamburg, I think. Right, 12 miles on the autobahn. We'll wind her up a little bit. 97 miles now according to the GPS, and all legal. Like it. Busy on a Friday morning. I've never followed a Skoda before at 104 miles an hour. Excellent. There's nothing behind me. I don't see any reason why this is any less safe. Having said that, I can now hear that front tyre making a slightly different whining noise. A little bit of a swabble at 106. I'm just going to slow down and come back in behind Bill here. Oh, much filtering. I hate filtering. Man, there's something massive moving on top of that bridge there. Some serious kit. Oh well, I've lost sight of Bill. He was filtering along quite nicely. Quite sure where we lost touch, however. So it seems it's just not Norway that has the monopoly on fancy bridges. So that's basically as I passed by Hamburg, very busy spot. Just about to turn off shortly, hopefully it's going to thin out a bit then again. Well, there was me hoping that it was going to quieten down when I turned off that motorway. Sadly it didn't. I suppose in some ways it gives me a bit of hope, because these motorways seem just as jam-packed full as the ones in Blighty do. This isn't too much different to the M6 on a Friday. It doesn't make for very interesting viewing though, so speak to you a bit later. Looks like I've caught up with Bill again. That's good. For a moment there I wondered if my sat-nav had done something funny, but it's all good. We're off the main roads now onto these back roads through some nice little towns, some lovely countryside. You'd never believe you were near the spot where all that hideousness took place, which sort of adds to the evil of it almost. Anyway, the site of the Belson Memorial, not too far to go now. Well, I have to say, despite its terrible and infamous past, this part of Germany is absolutely beautiful. This forested area, it's gorgeous on a day-to-day with the sun out, beautiful trees. It's such a tonic after the autobahns around Hamburg where it was really busy. Quick stop to use nature's facilities. 32 degrees in the shade. Outrageous. Right, back on the road. Sadly, we've had to come slightly off piste because the route in our sat-navs, actually the road is closed that we want to use. They're resurfacing it or something, but anyway, I'm sure using our initiatives we can find the route again. We reckon we've got about something like 30 miles to go to the Belson Memorial. Well, this is another lovely little town stroke village. Well, I suppose town it is, called Soltau, S-O-L-T-A-U, if you're following on the map. And like the rest of Germany, or most of Germany that I've seen so far, super clean, everything's super lovely. Really does put blighted to shame when you come to some of these European countries. Not all of them, but some of them. And Norway and Germany are two such. You know, I said village or town. I'm definitely now saying Soltau is a town, and quite a busy one at that. 30 degrees according to the Apothek. 33 according to my GS. So just coming to the town now of Bergen, B-E-R-G-E-N, as opposed to the Nordic Bergen that we stayed at. And I think this might actually be the home of the rucksack, because I saw no evidence of rucksacks at the Nordic Bergen. I only mention that because I've heard military types refer to those loaded packs they carry as Bergens. I sort of assumed it came from the Nordic place, but maybe it came from here. Anyway, this is the closest town to Belsen, so I think we're just on the lookout now for the memorial site. So part of my interest in coming to Belsen is because over the last few years I've been fortunate enough to go to lots of talks at my flying club, and one of the regular speakers used to be somebody called Eric Brown, or otherwise known as Captain Eric Winkelbrown, who was just a hero of a naval pilot who did all sorts of things, including holding the record for the most ever carrier landings for any pilot, a record that will never be beaten. He was the first pilot to land a jet on board an aircraft carrier, and all sorts of other stuff as well, including amazing stories of daring do in the war. Absolutely incredible fellow, and I had the privilege to see him speak, you know, live, as it were, on 3 occasions. Sadly, 2 years ago he died. But one of the stories he talked about when we met him in those talks was he was part of the Ford party that came and liberated Belsen at the end of the war in 1945. He was taken along not because he was a naval pilot, because he happened to be working on a nearby base, and they needed somebody that could speak fluent German, which he could do, so they could speak to the commandant of the camp. And the stories he described of what he found when he got here were absolutely horrific. Just stories of rampant overcrowding, piles of bodies piled on top of each other, bunkhouses that were made to sleep 40 people housing 200, rows of 3 bunks that should have had 3 people on that actually had 9 people on, with dead bodies at the bottom, and just piles of human excrement on top of those. The stories were just absolutely horrific. One of the things that they did discover was that the place was so riddled with disease, what they had to do in particular to stop typhus spreading was basically burn the place to the ground. Once they had helped all the prisoners that they could, they completely burnt it to the ground, so there's nothing left of it, unlike the other infamous camp at Auschwitz, which is now somewhat of a memorial to everybody in concentration camps. So here we are, Belsen, sends shivers down my spine. One of the things that Eric Brown talked about was that when he revisited Belsen some 50 odd years later, he brought the Queen here on a visit. He said it still had a feeling of evil about it, and he noticed that there was a complete lack of any animal noises, no bird song, nothing, as if somehow the sort of aura of evil continued. Anyway, as I was coming across in this area. I just thought it was important to just remember that and pay my own respects to those poor souls, the tens of thousands of people that perished here. So this is the site of the concentration camp, and the thing that strikes you when you get here, exactly as I was saying that Eric Brown said, is it's absolutely silent here. You just listen. Just the wind, not a single note of bird or rustling of animal. And just the size of this site, I've just read 52,000 people perished here. 52,000. And the obelisk over there was put up by the British military in 1945 as a lasting memorial. And these banks here are all mass graves. Staggering. This sign here, you possibly can't read it, says, "Here lieth 2,500 souls, April 1945." And this is just one of these mass graves, and they're all over the site. Look, mass graves everywhere. Unbelievable. Well, what a place that was. Absolutely amazing visitor centre there that I didn't take the pictures of course, with lots of information, detail. I mean, huge credit to modern day Germans that they had that stuff so that we don't forget what went on in those places. Absolutely staggering. There's photographs in there from the British military's records of when that camp was liberated, and it's, well, those are pictures I think everybody should see at some point, just to show what man can do to man, so that we don't do it again. Unbelievable. Anyway, it's difficult to come out of those places without feeling somewhat depressed, but nonetheless, glad I went and saw it. So we're on our final leg of our trip of, I guess, stuff that we've not done before. Back to our hotel now in Wildeshausen, which is just a hotel in the countryside, I think. It's sort of like a country club. Sounds very nice. So looking forward to getting there and trying out the shower, I must say. Whilst on the subject of being slightly depressed, I've just realised that my wallet and passport, which always live in this pocket in my tank bag, have gone missing. So I've either mislaid them, which is very unlikely because I always know where they are, or somebody has stolen them. I've got a horrible feeling it might be the latter, or I could have left them on the cruise ship. The last time I saw them was certainly on the ship, so I've got some work to do when I get to the hotel, cancelling all my credit cards and working out how I'm going to get some money so that I can get some petrol to get home. I'm sure my team here will be able to stump up for that. And more importantly, I guess, how I get home with no passport. So suddenly I've got a bit of an adventure on my hands. Well, I'm absolutely cooking now. It's 34, it's just gone up to 35 degrees now. As we head south, it's getting ever hotter, and it's, there you go, 35 degrees the ambient temperature. I'm gagging for a drink, but of course I haven't got any money to buy one. I'm just pondering how on earth I'm going to get home, given I haven't got a passport or any identification whatsoever, because things like my driving licence, credit cards, etc. were all stolen in my wallet along with my passport. Very annoying. Anyway, these things are sent to try us. I'm sure I'll work out a way to get home eventually. Stay tuned to find out how I do it. In the meantime, got my fuel gauge come on. Happy days. Right, thanks to my knight in shining armour, Bill over there, I've now got a full tank of fuel, so I know I can get to the hotel at least. Then I need to worry about how I get fuel tomorrow to get back to the ferry terminal. And then I have to worry about how I'm going to blag my way up the ferry in order to get back to Blighty. Anyway, all part of the adventure. In the meantime, it's 35 degrees and I'm in full biking kit. Boy, I can't wait to get to the hotel. It's 63 miles away, an hour and 43 minutes according to the sat-nav. Can't get there soon enough. Right, we're off. Oh, a bit of airflow, that's all I need. Let's open up this jacket. Well, it's a very nice little town. Sadly I didn't catch the name, but a nice cool river. And a bridge. And the emphasis on the cool is because we went up to 36 degrees just now. It's just getting crazy. And I'm really hoping it doesn't get any hotter, because even with all my vents open, it's still pretty warm on a hot motorbike. Anyway, I've only got 43 miles to go now to the hotel. Unless I see something amazing, I'll catch up with you again there. Interesting. Quick look at Google Earth, I think.
Not having much luck here, are we?
No. That's the second closed road we've had today. Right. We're in Nienberg. And just seeing if there's a way we can get around this.
Right, and then right again.
Yeah, so that down there,
Yeah.
right along there,
Yeah.
and then it zigzags, and then oh crikey.
Oh no, I think right.
No, that then goes under the road.
Right and second right.
Let's try that and then re-look.
Well, good morning folks. This morning I bring you good and bad news. The good news is that I found my wallet and passport, which was a major weight off my mind. I thought I was going to be spending a couple of nights in a cell somewhere trying to blag my way back into Blighty, so thank goodness I don't have to do that. The bad news is the last day of our tour. So let me just recap where we are. Yesterday we travelled down from the ferry at Kiel, and we came all the way around the outside of Hamburg and down this way, and now we're in this area which is the Wildeshausen, staying at the hotel. And then today we've got about a 200-mile ride back across Holland to the Hook of Holland, obviously where we catch the ferry home. And down this way we're going to stop for some supper, and there's some windmills and stuff to see. So it's our last full day of riding, as I say. So really sad that that's the case. I'll try and get a little bit of video on the way back for anything interesting that we see. Just thought I'd show you this last hotel room. As I say, we're in Wildeshausen, and this hotel is called the, what's it called? Let me just check. It's called the Gut Altona. I'm not sure what that means, but anyway, here we go. It's perfectly functional, but I wouldn't necessarily recommend it. It's in a state of sort of mid-build. If I show you out the window. Very strange place. Anyway, it served its purpose. Just going to grab some breakfast and it's back on the bike. Speak to you in a minute.